Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Well, we'll head out west this hour. We'll go to Wyoming for an episode of Fort Laramie and an episode of Gunsmoke from Dodge City, Kansas. And we'll see what's going on with Lum's broken leg that isn't broken. Check on all that here. Thanks for tuning in. On this Saturday, this is the 14th day of October, 287th day of 2023, and 78 days till we get to 2024. The UK's East India Company's tea ship's cargo burned at Annapolis, Maryland on this date in 1773. President Washington proclaimed the first Thanksgiving Day on this date in 1789. George Eastman patented paper strip photographic film in 1884. In 1910, English aviator Claude Graham White landed his Farman biplane on Executive Avenue near the White House. That's now Pennsylvania Avenue. While campaigning in Milwaukee on this date in 1912, former President Teddy Roosevelt shot by saloon keeper John Schrank with a fresh flesh wound and the bullet still in him. Roosevelt still delivered his scheduled speech. That's where the whole thing came up of he's as tough as a bull moose. Sophomore tackle and guard Paul Robeson excluded from the Rutgers football team on this date in 1916 when Washington and Lee University refused to play against a black person. The children's book Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne, first published in 1926. In 1933, Nazi Germany withdrew from the League of Nations. In 1947, Chuck Yeager flew a Bell X-1 faster than the speed of sound, the first man to do so in level flight.
Took the roster of all of our test pilots. We had 125 at the time, I believe, and went over this roster in great detail and selected about 25 pilots that we considered qualified for the flight. We then called in each of these pilots and interviewed them, of course having quite a bit of personal knowledge of their attitude and ability. And we'd hoped to find a pilot that didn't have a family, one who wasn't married preferably. After interviewing all of the pilots, we always came back to Yeager. He had demonstrated his ability on numerous occasions in our presence in the various flight demonstrations at the field and also in test work.
Air Force Colonel Alan Boyd on the selection of Chuck Yeager to make that flight back in 1947. In 1949, 11 members of the Communist Party convicted after a 9-month trial of conspiring to advocate the violent overthrow of the U.S. government. A U-2 flight over Cuba took photographs of Soviet nuclear weapons being installed on this date in 1962. 1964, Leonid Brezhnev became General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union and leader of the Soviet Union, ousting Nikita Khrushchev. In 1964, American civil rights movement leader Dr. Martin Luther King won a Nobel Prize.
I do not consider this merely an honor to me personally, but a tribute to the discipline, wise restraint, and majestic courage of the millions of gallant Negroes and white persons of goodwill who have followed a nonviolent course in seeking to establish a reign of justice and a rule of love across this nation of ours.
Dr. Martin Luther King became the youngest recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize on this date in 1964. The first live telecast from a manned U.S. spacecraft, Apollo 7, on this date in 1968. In 1981, citing official misconduct in the investigation and trial, Amnesty International charged the U.S. government with holding Richard Marshall of the American Indian Movement as a political prisoner. We still have political prisoners to this date. 1998, Eric Robert Rudolph charged with 6 bombings, including the 1996 Centennial Olympic Park bombing in Atlanta. 2012, Felix Baumgartner successfully jumped to Earth from a helium balloon in the stratosphere in the Red Bull Stratos project. And you know, I would be terrified to do that. But boy, it would be a beautiful trip on the way down. It really would be. Until, well, a lot of things went wrong. In my case, they would be going wrong. 2014, Utah State University received a bomb threat against feminist media critic Anna Sarkeesian, who was to give a lecture the next day. You know, folks, freedom of speech. Let people have what they have to say, even if you disagree with it. Passing away on this date in history, actor Errol Flynn, actress Dame Edith Evans, Bing Crosby passing away on this date, as Keenan Wynn, a fine dramatic actor. Composer, conductor Leonard Bernstein, writer, animal rights activist, and curmudgeon at large, Cleveland Amory. Also musician Frankie Yankovic, the accordion player. Also Freddie Fender, Wasted Days and Wasted Nights. Lou Albano, who not only do we see the crazy Lou Albano in the 80s WWE stuff, but before that, he was a mean, vicious wrestler. He was. Lou Albano passing away on this date. From Falcon Crest, Simon McCorkindale. And let's see, Hagrid and Harry Potter, Robbie Coltrane passing away 1 year ago today. Birthdays on this date include the founder of Pennsylvania, William Penn, President Dwight David Eisenhower, President 34, and fine general in World War II. Actress Lillian Gish, poet E.E. Cummings, who always spelled his name in lowercase letters. One of those people. Mrs. Ronald Coleman, Benita Hume, born on this date. Surgeon General C. Everett Koop, probably the best-known Surgeon General in history, born on this date, as actor Roger Moore. Nikolai Volkov, who was, for a while he was the big Russian menace, but quite frankly, he was a pussycat, a nice guy. Actor Harry Anderson, and we cannot forget, this is the birth date of Bill Justice.
1969.
His later hit, Raunchy, of course, the earlier hit, Honky Tonk, Bill Justice, born on this date in history. Among people still with us on this mortal coil include Watergate figure John Dean, fashion designer Ralph Lauren. From BJ and the Bear, My Two Dads, and Tech War, Greg Evigan is 70. Thomas Dolby, still blinding people with science at 65. From Tank Girl, Lori Petty. Singer-actor Usher, 45. Actress, former pro wrestler, although she didn't wrestle much, she was mostly a ballet, Stacy Keibler, 44. From Bratz and Super Babies, Skylar Shea is 37. From The Guiding Light and The Bold and the Beautiful, Mackenzie Mousy is 35. And from Spy Kids, Rowan Blanchard is 21. And dare we not forget that fine English singer Cliff Richard turns 83 today.
1979.
It's so funny how we don't talk anymore. It's so funny why we don't talk anymore. But I ain't losing sleep, and I ain't counting sheep.
I get asked, why do I run his 1979 hit, We Don't Talk Anymore, instead of his bigger hit, Devil Woman? And you consider that who ran my show for years were Christian radio stations, and I really did not want to get the devil involved. The devil made me do it, honey. Cliff Richard, 83 today. Some of the people celebrating the 14th day of October as their birthday. And if this happens to be your birthday...
Hi, we're the four freshmen, and we just want to say, Happy birthday to you.
Okay, Big Western Hour here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. And because both these shows aired 67 years ago today, we'll take a look at headlines coming up following this first program, which will be Raymond Burr's Fort Laramie that ran on Sunday afternoon, October 14th, 1956. But first, we remind you, you're listening to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
Just one person can make the mistake that causes an accident. Pedestrian, passenger, or driver. Any one of us can go into the kind of solo mistake that spells trouble on the road. It can happen even though we know better. Most drivers know how their cars operate and what the traffic rules are. We know that speed kills and that alcohol and gas make a bad mixture. Yet an impulse sometimes takes over. We show off, act defiant, or let off steam. We take the gamble that figures in the majority of accidents today. Don't be sorry later. Be sure now. Drive with courtesy and care. Use posted signs and signals. They were placed there for you to know the road ahead. Keep in mind that just one person can cause an accident when a dangerous impulse takes over behind the wheel. It's what psychiatrists call emotional immaturity. Whatever your age, on the road, grow up and live. Remember, careless driving is kid stuff.
I want to take a moment here before I get into this. So many of you said, you had such a great radio show. Why did you take it off air and go to podcast only? And I have said my health was a lot of the issue. I was working 90 hours a week. When we started doing Classic Radio Theater, back in the 2015, there was myself, and we had producers and other people who would, once I would record the show, they would insert all the commercials and make sure it got out to radio stations and the podcast got out. Well, then all at once, I didn't have anybody making sure the podcast went out, so I had to take that on. And then I didn't have anybody assembling the shows, so I had to assemble the shows for broadcast as well. And then I didn't have anybody marketing the show to radio stations, so I had to do that too. And I mean, it literally became a 40-hour-a-week job just to keep the show up. And what was worse is when our CEO died 2 years ago, the paycheck stopped coming. So we started to do it ourselves, and we just never had time. I had nobody out there selling advertising. And, without advertising, the bills don't get paid. So I'm still doing the podcast because it actually has always been very successful thanks to you listening. And please tell your friends that the podcast is back. It's still here. It ain't going anywhere unless I hit the Powerball, in which case I may take another little break. If I hit the Powerball, we'll see what happens after that. Okay, we're going out west this hour. We're going to start off by going to Fort Laramie. And as I recall, is in Wyoming. Raymond Burr stars as Captain Lee Quince in this episode from 67 years ago today, October 14th, 1956. It's entitled Still Waters. I would call it Water, Water Everywhere, but not a drop of beer.
At the gallop! Oh!
Fort Laramie.
Fort Laramie, starring Raymond Burr as Captain Lee Quince. Specially transcribed tales of the dark and tragic ground of the wild frontier. The saga of fighting men who rode the rim of empire. And the dramatic story of Lee Quince, Captain of Cavalry.
Captain?
Oh, Mr. Syberts. The men looked fine, I thought.
Well, yes, sir. They looked all right.
Good drill. Good parade.
Yes, sir, but actually I was more concerned with... Well, weren't you listening, sir?
I was watching, Lieutenant. I almost never listen to a dress parade.
I mean the band.
The band seemed to march real good.
Captain, the music. Frankly, I thought it was terrible.
Oh?
Usually it just sounds bad. But today it was awful. What, didn't it sound strange to you? Tinny, off-key?
I was watching B Company, Mr. Syberts. Marched just fine.
I don't know. Maybe it's my ears.
More likely my ears. I don't pay much mind to the music. When I was a boy, my mother thought I had a promising voice. So I'd sing for her. And the hogs would come running. Then the neighbors got so they'd come running, too. I got a lot of encouragement to quit singing.
But just because you couldn't sing well, Captain, doesn't mean you don't have an appreciation for music.
Oh, I think it does, Mr. Syberts. You see, I wasn't just obliging my mother. I thought I sounded fine, too.
Well, you were considerably younger, sir. I'm sure you've outgrown all that by now. After all, with your mother to encourage you, you couldn't be blamed for thinking
Around her neck she wore a yellow ribbon.
Captain.
She wore it in the winter and the merry month of May. And when they ask her why...
Really, Captain, it was more about the regimental band than anything else. And if you didn't notice the band,
Far away, far away. She wore it for her lover who was far, far away.
Yes, well, I'm beginning to think I was very mistaken, if you'll excuse me, Captain.
Away, far away.
Captain Quince? Major Daggett? What are you doing?
I was singing, sir.
You call that singing?
Yes, I do. But I suppose it's a minority opinion.
Are you drunk, Captain?
No, sir. I can account for the singing if you're interested, Major.
I'm only interested in stopping it. We've had enough bad music around here for one day.
I thought dress parade came off fine, sir. I was very proud of B Company.
Captain, I don't want to hear another reference to dress parade today.
Yes, sir.
It's over. That's the only good thing about it. It's over. I don't want to discuss it. I don't want to hear it discussed. That's an order, Captain.
Yes, sir.
I won't even ask if you heard the band. Did you hear the band?
Must have. I saw it. Seemed to me they marched real good.
No matter if you heard it or not. If that bellowing you call singing's a sample of your ear for music... Marched real good?
I thought so, sir.
If I want marching, I'll get a company of infantry. From a band, Captain, I expect just one thing, music. You think I'm being unreasonable?
Kind of hard to get music out of busted instruments, I imagine.
I realize some of the pieces are quite old. Schultz tells me in the field they have problems with rust, sand, foul in the cornet pistons, but busted instruments?
The report said the band was brawling over something Saturday night. Someone put his foot through a field drum, some of the blowhorns got smashed.
You read a report on a band brawl?
Mm-hmm. On your desk, Sunday morning, Major.
Oh. Well, I want to talk to the bandmaster, and if you'll stop delaying me, I will.
Sorry to hold you up, Major.
Lee. I'm sorry.
For what?
Well, I'm mad as the devil. I didn't mean to take it out on you.
I was handy.
And you were singing, don't forget. Kind of set me off.
Set Mr. Syberts off, too.
Fact of the matter is, we have guests on the post. I wanted to be especially proud of our band. Oh, and what they did to Boots and Saddles, I think it was Boots and Saddles. I gotta see Schultz.
Tell him I thought the band marched real good.
You ailin', Harrison?
Not me, Sergeant.
We'd like to get that lumber loaded so you could run the wagon up to Old Bedlam, unload it, and come back here and start all over.
No, I'm doing what I can. I swear I am.
You ain't ailing, you shake a leg.
Both of them are shaking now, Sergeant.
All right, Harrison, come out with it. I got about half a minute's patience left.
You know I'm a reasonable man. You know that right off. Well, if I'm not reasonable, maybe there's a cause.
I ain't got long to wait.
Like this contrary weather. It ought to be cooling off. Give a man a feel for hard work. It's got no right to be blazing hot this time of year.
You're asking for a change of weather?
I'd be obliged if you could arrange it, Sergeant. Anything, just any small thing would be an improvement.
Well, now, you just come to the right man, Harrison. Just for you, I'm going to change the weather. You mind now you asked me to do it?
Oh, I ask. I sure ask, all right.
Trooper Harrison?
Yes, Sergeant.
Report to the guardhouse.
Guardhouse? On what charge?
On the charge that you asked for. It takes you right out of the blazing sun. Of course, how you're going to get a breath of air is something else again. But seeing any small change would be an improvement.
Sergeant, I'll be getting back to my loading now.
I thought you wanted to change the weather.
One day I'm going to learn to keep my mouth shut around here.
That day comes, you write me a letter so I'll know.
You know I can't write.
I tell you one good thing, Harrison.
I just ain't rising to any more bait, Sergeant.
Fatigue's over in half an hour, and after supper...
There's a band concert, I know. Well, it ain't gonna cool me off none. Not a cent's worth.
Only there ain't gonna be no band concert. In fact, if Bandmaster Schultz can't explain himself any better to Major Daggett than he has so far...
Oh, my foot!
Maybe we heard the last toot ever from our regimental band.
Pliny? You around, Pliny?
No.
What are you doing behind the pickle barrel? You drop a penny?
Are you alone, Captain?
Sure.
I'm not exactly open. It's almost 4:30.
You'd open at midnight to sell a 2-penny cigar. Now come on out from behind that barrel.
Well, oh my, it's unnerving. That's what it is. What did you want, Captain?
What are you whispering about?
Well, you never know who's listening these days.
I'm listening. I'm hard put to hear you. Are you going to sell me a glass of beer, or do I have to draw it myself?
Ha-ha.
Aha.
Who sent you?
Pliny, it's a hot day.
Oh, no, you don't, sir. I know an investigation when I see one. Well, you may tell that committee and Major Daggett and all the powers that be that I am living up to the letter of my agreement with the United States Army.
Maybe you ought to have a glass of beer, too.
It's not my concern if the regimental band can't play without instruments.
What about the band?
No beer, no band. Oh, I'll miss the drums. Won't you?
Pliny, what time of day do you start making sense?
Why, Captain, I believe you don't know. You came here in innocence. But these are dark days, and the seeds of distrust are on the wind.
This time I'm going into the canteen and get that beer.
There is no beer. There will be no beer. Beer is a closed issue. Poor Schultz. Poor Schultz.
You keep going from beer to band.
From no beer to no band. And you can thank Mrs. Feemster and her committee for that.
Mrs. Feemster's not doing anything. She's just visiting Fort Laramie.
Her visit was ill-timed. Just when Schultz needed new instruments the worst way. But alas, 5% of nothing will not buy French horns and trumpets. And, oh my, I will miss the drums. I'm still not reaching you, am I, Captain?
I know. No, you're not.
Then let me put it simply. A, B, C. A is for the agreement. Now then, 5% of all proceeds from the sale of beer I give to B, which is the band. From these monies, Schultz buys new instruments. That is, he did until... Oh, yes, until C. C is for committee, headed by Mrs. Feemster. The committee for moral improvement, if you will. Oh, and that means no beer. It follows then, no beer, no proceeds, no band. Yeah. Oh, my. I put that well, didn't I?
If you did, you better climb in that pickle barrel, Pliny. A sutler that doesn't sell beer needs a real hiding place.
But the brine...
Salty.
Oh, Captain, I was just about to send for you.
Just came from the settlers, Major. You got any idea what's going on around here?
Hold your voice down. Come here.
Pliny was whispering, too, for a while.
Now, listen to me, Lee. I get a better idea than anyone what's going on around here. Mrs. Feemster's in my office now. Let's go in here.
The army run by a woman now, Major?
That's not funny, Lee.
I don't mean it funny. I can't get a glass of beer. Pliny says that woman's why.
I've just learned from Washington that there's several thousand Mrs. Feemsters, Captain, and their ranks seem to be growing daily. Not only that, but they're also Mr. Feemsters, and their voices are getting louder every day.
Mrs. Feemster doesn't like beer?
On moral grounds.
She like whiskey better?
Whiskey isn't the issue. Beer, light wines, such as are sold at the sutler's canteen.
Then she likes whiskey better.
She wouldn't see it that way. Besides, it isn't just the beer. That's just part of their plan for moral improvement. They want to see that all posts have libraries, more recreational facilities, concerts.
From the regimental band, playing on no instruments?
Well, Mrs. Feemster realizes the problem there.
I got nothing against libraries, recreation. We need 'em. But do you think we got any kind of a drinking problem at Fort Laramie?
I've never been aware of one.
If we had one, you'd be aware of it. We all would. And if we had one, it wouldn't be on account of beer served to the settlers.
I know that, Lee. You act like this was up to me. Well, let me assure you, it isn't.
Ms. Feemster, post commander?
I'm still in command here, and that means I still follow orders from Washington. That's where the real pressure's coming from. They've banned the sale of beer at Fort Sully, Fort McPherson, and Fort Totten, and I can't keep them from banning it here.
That brings us back to whiskey again. If a man can't get a glass of beer on the post, he'll go off the post. You think Mrs. Feemster knows what a hog ranch is?
A whiskey ranch? I doubt it.
Well, they got 'em now, all around Fort Sully and Fort Totten. And men that used to drink beer at those posts are stealing off and rotting their insides on hog ranch whiskey.
You seem pretty sure of your facts, Lee.
Ask Major Trucks. He got the information at the post surgeons' meeting last month at Fort Randall. The post surgeons are recommending that they reopen the canteens.
I wonder. Just wonder. No, it'd never work.
No, what wouldn't work?
I don't think even Major Trucks could convince Mrs. Feemster she was short-sighted.
I was thinking more of letting Mrs. Feemster make her own decision about being short-sighted.
You haven't met her, have you?
No, I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Now, Lee?
I'd like to volunteer to show Mrs. Feemster around the post tomorrow, Major.
Volunteer?
You might just tell her I'll call for her tomorrow, right after guard mount. Afternoon to you, Major. Of course, in time, we'd want to build a library building separate, but that takes time. Right now, there's only one building not being put to use.
Well, I'm sure I don't know where that is, Captain. Goodness knows we've covered most of the post.
Except the sutler's, ma'am. It's just ahead.
But surely the sutler's store isn't vacant.
Not the store, just the canteen. It's part of the same building.
Is that where they keep beer?
When they had it, ma'am.
My dear young man, I have never set foot in a saloon, and I don't intend to go now.
The saloon's where they sell liquor, ma'am. This canteen's an empty room and a counter. But if you don't want to look at it,
You're certain there's nothing in the nature of spirits in there?
I give you my word, Mrs. Feemster. There isn't a sign of spirit in there now.
Very well, then. I suppose I should take the long view. After all, the library is the important thing. But in a saloon...
A canteen.
I'll take your word there's a difference, Captain.
After you, ma'am.
Thank you, Captain.
Canteen straight ahead, Mrs. Feemster.
Now then, Pliny, I got a long order here. Best you write it down.
Just a moment, Sergeant. Just a moment. Captain?
Yes, Pliny? Oh, have you met Mrs. Feemster? This is Pliny Burgess, the sutler.
Mr. Burgess?
Madam? Now, Captain, you know very well the canteen is... well, it's...
Yeah, we know, Pliny. We come to see how the room would do for a library.
A library? You mean books, and books in there?
We'll just look it over. You mind your customer over there.
Oh, well, I don't know.
I got cash money, Pliny.
Coming. Yes, indeed. In fact, I'm here.
Well, Mrs. Feemster?
Well, yes, I think perhaps you may be right, Captain.
Lemon extract.
This room would make...
I want all the lemon extract you got. All the vanilla, peppermint, ginger.
All?
Every drop. Then I want everything in stock in the way of cinnamon, red pepper sauces, bay rum. You got any smelly water, Pliny?
Smelly? Oh, no, I don't believe I have any. Oh, no.
You're not paying much mind to the room, ma'am.
Hey? Oh, why... Oh, yes, it's first rate. Splendid.
O.D. something, Pliny.
O.D.? Smelly.
Excuse me, ma'am. You know what I'm trying to say.
I?
You know, you women folks uses it sometimes. Smells right nice. O.D.
O.D. cologne.
Oh, that's it, ma'am. Thank you kindly. I'll take all you got, Pliny.
All, I've got.
Seems to me we could get several hundred books in here, Miss Feemster. Now, along that wall there,
just a minute, Captain. Young man.
You talking to me, ma'am?
I am indeed. Your order to Mr. Burgess, all the lemon extract, all the cologne.
Yes, ma'am.
May I ask what you're planning to do with it?
Why, drink it, ma'am.
Drink it?
Well, maybe not all of it. I'll sell some, chances are. Maybe give some now and again to my friends. But...
Drink it?
Why, ma'am, you strain extract or that OD stuff through some coarse bread, you got a fine batch of alcohol.
Oh, my.
Now, myself, I'd rather have a glass of beer, but we can't get that no more here, so, well, man's left to his own devices, you might say.
Thank you, Gorse.
I just hope it did the trick, Captain.
Right now, we almost have this added up, so let me see what that comes to, $57.43, Sergeant.
Pliny, I've been thinking this over.
Huh? Oh. Well, now, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Now, since you're such a good customer, I'm going to let you have the whole thing for $57.33.
You drink it, Pliny. I'm going to Laramie Village for a beer.
Why, Captain, you've come to say goodbye.
No, I wasn't sure I'd be welcome, Mrs. Feemster. Major tells me you were a while settling down.
I very nearly fainted. You may as well know that.
Well, if it'd make you feel any better, it was all made up for your benefit, ma'am.
So Major Daggett assured me. Oh, my, Captain. I'm going back to Washington with a brand new outlook. I think our Committee on Moral Improvement may just revise its thinking a bit.
You talked to the post surgeon?
Indeed, I did. I'm taking the entire matter up with all of official Washington.
Yes, ma'am.
And I want to thank you for opening my eyes, Captain. And that nice orderly of yours.
Harrison?
Yes, Trooper Harrison. He's the one who makes those nice outdoor stoves.
Is?
He was cooking last evening down by the Laramie River. I was out for my evening constitutional, and he explained it all to me about his stove. A retort, a condenser, and a receiver.
Harrison, he called it a stove?
Oh, he had some other name for it. A foolish name, too.
A foolish name like a still?
Yes, but I could see it was a stove. He's promised to send me the plans, show me just how to make it.
Mrs. Feemster, that stove, I was just...
Oh, my goodness, the stage is ready. Goodbye, Captain.
Goodbye, Mrs. Feemster.
Fort Laramie is produced and directed by Norman MacDonald and stars Raymond Burr as Lee Quince, Captain of Cavalry, with Vic Perrin as Sergeant Gorse. The script was specially written for Fort Laramie by Kathleen Height, with sound patterns by Bill James and Ray Kemper, musical supervision by Amerigo Marino. Featured in the cast were Howard McNear, Jeanette Nolan, and Sam Edwards. Jack Moyles is Major Daggett, and Harry Bartell is Lieutenant Seiberts.
Company, tension! Dismiss!
Next week, another transcribed story of the Northwest frontier and the troopers who fought under Lee Quince, Captain of Cavalry. Are you a student, businessman, musician, stamp collector? No matter what your profession or age, your opposite number in some faraway country wants to know about you and to tell you about his own life and thoughts. CBS Radio urges you to send your name to Letters from Abroad, 45 East 65th Street, New York City, mentioning your age, occupation, and interests. They'll find you a suitable correspondent in the country of your choice.
Everybody lived happily thereafter. Raymond Burr, Fort Laramie, from 67 years ago, October 14th, 1956, 67 years ago today. And we'll take a look at the news from that Sunday 67 years ago when Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox continues following these important messages.
We are the vocal parents of the local PTA. We're gathered here because we fear that 10 years from today, the younger generation of a growing population who look to us for leadership will look at us and say, we have no alma maters, with or without swimming pools. We have no alma maters, because we have no schools.
Our children are growing faster than our schools. And 10 years from today, conditions may become desperate unless we do something about it now. If you'd like to do something constructive about it now, write to Better Schools, 9 East 40th Street, New York 16, New York.
we can have the schools we need 10 years from today.
Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're listening to a couple of westerns, Fort Laramie and Gunsmoke. Both those shows originally aired Sunday, October 14th, 1956. In the newspapers of that Sunday, 67 years ago, these were some of the headlines. Adlai Stevenson drafted Saturday a new appeal to the nation for support of his proposal to end H-bomb tests, while Vice President Nixon called on him to admit what Nixon called his error in playing politics with America's national security. President Eisenhower has described Stevenson's suggestion as a theatrical national gesture turned meanwhile to more personal matters. The president quietly observes his 66th birthday in the White House after participating in a national broadcast advance celebration last night. The Panama Canal Company, with a prod from newsmen and a go-ahead from President Eisenhower, agreed today to make public the names of congressional free riders on its 3 passenger ships. The decision, revoking a long-time secrecy rule, was taken by the board of directors of the government-owned company. Assistant Secretary of Defense George H. Roderick is board chairman. Eisenhower asked at his Thursday news conference if he felt the board should disclose the ship's passenger list. He said he knew of no reason on earth why they should not be published the day the ship sails. Prime Minister Anthony Eden told 4,000 cheering conservatives today Britain refuses to rule out force as a means of settling the Suez dispute with Egypt. His declaration at a mass rally of party workers in in Wales, followed an up-to-the-minute report which he said had come to him from Foreign Secretary Selwyn Lloyd in New York, saying a little progress had been made in secret 3-power talks between Lloyd and French Foreign Minister Christian Pineau and Egyptian Foreign Minister Mohamed Bouazi. But wide differences of opinion still divide the two sides, presumably over the measures of international control to be exercised over the canal's operation. Mysterious SOS signals posed a riddle last night for a big air and sea armada searching the eastern Atlantic for 58 servicemen who disappeared Wednesday aboard a military transport plane. Unsigned signals heard by both ships and aircraft guided mercy planes to an area about 100 miles off the northwest tip of Spain, an area in which the C-118 Liftmaster could well have gone down with its crew of 9 Navy men and 50 Air Force passengers headed home to their Lincoln, Nebraska base from duty in Britain. A girl clerk in the U.S. Embassy at Prague, who's reported to have taken an auto tour with a Czechoslovakia man, got enmeshed in an international incident. The communist government of Czechoslovakia accused her of traveling on false identification papers and forced the U.S. to order her out of Czechoslovakia. The U.S. unexpectedly admitted that the charge of false papers was true. It denied any espionage was involved, however, and blamed the whole thing on attentions paid to the clerk by a mysterious Czechoslovak citizen. And in Sarasota, Florida, a Navy recruiter is currently a guest of the Air Force. Walter Bostic, suffering a back ailment, taken to the hospital at MacDill Air Force Base. Subbing for him is Tampa recruiter Ralph Mouse. Though some of the day's top news stories, as reported in the newspapers of Sunday, October 14th, 1956, on your radio, you will hear Gunsmoke next, and that'll be coming up following these very important messages. You're listening to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
The world is in a chaotic state these days. Maintaining world peace requires much more than military strength. It takes moral strength, too. That moral strength can come from our spiritual advisors, our ministers, priests, and rabbis. Educating our children in the right way, teaching them to love and fear God, can help to build morally and spiritually strong young men and women out of them. Many of us have personal troubles, some of which seem insoluble. Contact with God will provide the necessary comfort and strength to carry on under even the most trying circumstances. Get into the habit of attending your church or synagogue regularly, and don't go alone. Take a friend with you, or better still, take your whole family. Families who worship together stay together. There come times in all our lives when we feel the need of advice or comfort from a spiritual advisor. How much more helpful he can be if we are in regular communication with him through weekly worship. Make America spiritually strong. Attend your church or synagogue each week.
Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station. Visit our webpage, classicradio.stream. Would love for you to stop by. Continuing our look at Sunday, October 14th, 1956, an episode of Gunsmoke now, starring William Conrad and that whole wonderful cast. And this episode is entitled Gunshot Wound.
Gunsmoke, brought to you by L&M, the modern cigarette that lets you get full, exciting flavor through the modern miracle of the pure white miracle tip. Live modern. Smoke L&M. Around Dodge City and in the territory on West, there's just one way to handle the killers and the spoilers, and that's with a U.S. Marshal and the smell of gun smoke. Gunsmoke, starring William Conrad. The transcribed story of the violence that moved west with young America. And the story of a man who moved with it.
I'm that man. Matt Dillon, United States Marshal. The first man they look for and the last they want to meet. It's a chancy job, and it makes a man watchful. And a little lonely.
Morning, Dr. Clay.
Oh, good morning, Nielson.
You wanted to see me?
No, I never wanted anything less than to call you in here.
You got bad news.
Yeah, it's been bearing down on me for 2 days. But you've got to know, Nielson.
I'm not going to make it?
No. Sooner or later, that bullet in you is going to kill you.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir, I am sure.
Well, I feel good enough, Doc. You could be wrong, couldn't you?
Well, I wish I was. I don't know if I'm right in telling you about it, but I treated the same kind of case at Shiloh. And the bullet kept moving, just like yours. And there was no way to stop it.
How long did it last?
Not as long as you have. You've been going 2 months since the fight.
And how much longer I got, Doc?
Well, there's no way to know. Another month, maybe longer, maybe less. I just thought you'd want to know, Nielson.
Better to know now than when it's too late to do anything about
it. What are you going to tell Alice?
What's there to say?
Well, with her planning the wedding, there ought to be some explanation. You, want me to tell her?
Just say I changed my mind and I'm heading west.
Where are you going?
Back to Dodge.
To look up the Mahler Brothers?
If they've killed me, I don't see any reason to let them go on living.
Chester, can you force it up a little more?
Well, no, not much, Mr. Dillon.
Come on, now. Yeah, that's better. Hold it then.
Well, can I turn loose now?
Now, let's just try one more nail.
Oh, the only thing that's going to fix this door is a whole new door, Mr. Dillon.
There. That'll hold it for a while.
Cussed wood so rotten dry it won't hold a nail no more.
Well, haven't you two given up with that door yet?
Ah, hello, Kitty.
I give up a long time ago, Miss Kitty.
Matt, Jim Nielson's back in town.
Jim Nielson?
What? Nielson's dead, Kitty.
No, he's not. He's at the Long Branch right now, spreading the word that he's come back to kill the Mahler Brothers.
Are you sure?
I've seen him. I've heard him.
All of the Mahler boys heard about it?
It won't take long, the way it's getting talked about.
Tom Mahler rode up to Clay City, Mr. Dillon, day before yesterday. Charlie's the only one in town.
I guess I better go see him.
What about Nielsen?
Well, if he's spreading the word, he'll be where I can find him anytime I want.
Trying to help you, only.
Charlie.
Oh. Afternoon, Marshal.
Hello, Charlie. What's the trouble?
Oh, this blamed mare got a rock in her hoof. She won't even let me pick it up.
You want me to hold her for you?
No, I'll manage. How are you, Marshal?
Oh, I'm fine, Charlie. Fine. Charlie, did you know that Jim Nielsen was in town?
Nielsen? Nielsen's dead, Marshal. Tom did for him.
He's not dead. He's back in Dodge looking for you and Tom.
All right. He's welcome.
Look, Charlie, I know a lot of people are on your side, but there are a lot of others on Nielsen's, and I'd like to stop this trouble before it goes any further.
It was a fair fight, Marshal.
I know it was.
Any time Nielsen wants to stand up again against either of us, we'll be ready.
It'd be better if you'd stay out of sight until he leaves.
I can't do that, Marshal, and you know it. People would say I was a coward.
What people say isn't important, Charlie.
I don't hide from nobody.
The only thing behind that fight was some temper and some strong words. Aren't you man enough to forget it?
What are you going to do about it, Marshal?
There's nothing I can do if you're set on facing Nielsen. Except try and get him out of town.
Free yourself of old-fashioned ideas.
Why don't you live modern? Live modern. Live modern.
Free up. Freshen up your taste.
Smoke an L&M.
Only the modern miracle of the pure white Miracle Tip can bring all of L&M's full, exciting flavor through to you. And that's the big reason why today more people are changing to L&M than to any other cigarette. Remember, L&M draws easier, tastes richer, smokes cleaner. So live modern. Change to L&M.
Make today your big red letter day and start to live the modern way. Live modern. Smoke an L&M.
It's America's fastest growing cigarette.
Hello, Nielsen.
Marshal?
Well, I didn't expect you'd ever get to Dodge again.
Guess you thought I was dead, Marshal, along with a lot of other people.
You didn't look very healthy when they took you out of here.
I'm still alive. For a little while, anyway.
What good's it doing you to be back here?
Well, everybody figured the fight was over, but I don't happen to think that way.
There's a lot of trouble over nothing. You and the Mahler Brothers are good men and peaceful ones. You were drinking and there were some names called. But that's sure no reason for you to come back and stir it all up again.
They thought they'd kill me, Marshal, and they were proud of it.
I don't think they were. Look, Jim, I'd like it if you'd go back to Abilene.
I'm not going to do it, Marshal. I got nothing to go back to, nowhere.
What does that mean?
I'm going to die from that gunfight we had. The bullet's still in me.
Oh. There's nothing to be done about it, huh?
No. Nothing but try and settle the score.
I don't see how you're going to be any better off trying to kill two good men, Jim.
Marshal, it's a funny thing knowing you're going to die. I had too much to live for when I faced up to him the first time. I was going to get married. I owned some land. Those were the things I was thinking about. I got scared and tightened up. Man shouldn't have anything to think about in a gunfight.
It was kind of hard not to.
But I don't have now, Marshal. I don't have a thing to lose.
Jim, you're a bad man to have in town.
I won't be here long. You can count on that. Drink with me, Marshal?
No. No, not tonight, thanks.
Nielson. I hear you're looking for me and my brother.
You forget it, Charlie, and get out of here.
Where should I get out to, Marshal? You want me to run away, Nielson?
Hold it, Charlie!
Is he dead, Marshal?
Yeah, he's dead. You satisfied now, Nielson?
It was a fair fight, just like the first one.
And just as needless.
Not to my way of thinking. Tell me, Marshal, when's Charlie's brother gonna get back to town?
Tom! Hold up a minute, Tom!
Here. Well, hello, Chester. What you doing way out here?
Mr. Dillon wanted me to stop you before you got up to the plaza.
Yeah, what for?
Well, Jim Nielson's waiting for you.
Nielson? Wait. What about my brother?
Charlie's dead, Tom.
Did Nielson do it?
Charlie come after him.
I thank you, Chester. Thank the marshal.
Tom, you gonna ride in anyway?
I got no place else to go.
Free yourself of old-fashioned ideas.
Why don't you live modern? Live modern. Live modern.
Free up. Freshen up your taste.
Smoke an L&M.
Live modern. Smoke modern. Smoke L&M. Enjoy full, exciting flavor through L&M's Pure White Miracle Tip. L&M draws easier, tastes richer, smokes cleaner, That's why today more people are changing to L&M than to any other cigarette. So free up, freshen up your taste, live modern, change to L&M.
Make today your big red letter day and start to live the modern way. Live, live, live modern. Smoke an L&M.
It's America's fastest growing cigarette.
Hello, Kitty.
Tom, I thought you were in Clay City.
I was. I did real well, too. I signed up for Charlie and me. Take a pack train clear to Lincoln County. Charlie's dead.
Can I get you a drink, Tom?
Maybe later. I thought Nielson was here.
He left about a half hour ago.
Happen to know where he went?
No. Can't you get your pack train together and go, Tom?
Oh, you know I can't, Kitty.
What good's it gonna do you looking for Nielson or waiting for him?
It's something I got to do.
If he kills you, what are you gonna be proving?
My brother's dead.
Killing Nielson won't bring him back. Some men ought to be killed, sure, but not you and Nielson. You're fine men, both of you.
My brother was a good man, too. Kitty, what would you have me do?
I don't know, Tom. Being the kind you are, and after what's already happened, I guess I got no right trying to tell you what to do.
Now, do you know if Nielson figured on coming back here?
I don't know, Tom. I'm going to my room.
I was just about to order that drink.
Then you'll have to have it without me.
Thank you for sitting with me, Kitty.
Matt, how long have you been here?
There's not a thing I can do, is there, Kitty?
Not if you don't take the guns away.
They'd only find more.
Then you watch them kill each other, Matt. I can't do it.
Mr. Dillon.
Yeah?
He's coming, Mr. Dillon.
How long, Chester?
It won't be but a few minutes. He was looking for Tom over at the Alfraganza.
All right. You get out of sight someplace.
All right, sir.
Afternoon, Marshal.
Hello, Tom. Look, Tom, I'm going to ask you to do a brave thing. Will you let me keep your gun for as long as you're in town?
No, I won't, Marshal.
You and I have been good friends, Tom.
I'd like to keep it that way.
But you won't do what I say, huh?
What would you do was you in my spot?
What you're going to do, I guess. Tom, it's a different kind of a fight this time. Nielson's going to die from the bullet you put in him 2 months ago, and he knows it. He's got nothing to lose.
I kind of wondered why he come back.
That's why. Now, will you either take off your gun or get out of town?
I'd like to leave, Marshal. I'd like to be rigging our string of mules with Charlie. But there won't be any more of that.
All right, Tom. I told Nielsen, and I'll tell you from the beginning, this thing has been needless. My mistake was not throwing the three of you in jail right off.
Marshal Dillon, have a drink with me.
No, thanks, Tom. I'm going back to my office. Goodbye. Well, Nielson, I guess there's no reason trying to talk any sense into you either.
It's gone past talking, Marshal. You aren't figuring on stopping me.
There's nothing I can do.
I'll see you later.
Matt?
Doc. How,
There was nothing I could do for him, Matt. He's dead.
Oh, my goodness. Seemed like such a waste. He was a good man, both of them was.
There's no reason for you to feel bad, Matt. You tried your very best to stop it.
someday there's going to be a law about carrying guns, and there's going to be fights like these that'll bring it.
A man's got the right, Mr. Dillon.
They're going to lose it, Chester, if this sort of thing doesn't stop. Doc, I'll have the body taken away.
All right, Matt.
I'll do it if you want me to.
Yeah, sure, Chester. I think I'm ready for that drink everybody offered me.
Me too. You reckon Miss Kitty knows?
By this time, I'd think so.
There he is, Mr. Dillon.
Hey, Nielson! Well, you made it, huh? You killed both the Mahler brothers.
Yeah?
And in fair fight, huh?
Yeah.
I want to ask you something. Make you feel any better?
No. Tell you the truth, it don't.
In a moment, our star, William Conrad. Americans today are earning more money than ever before. And smart Americans are planning ahead, too, to preserve prosperity. They're investing part of their paycheck every payday in United States savings bonds. And you can, too, an easy, automatic way, by joining the payroll savings plan and buying savings bonds regularly where you work. With payroll savings, money is set aside for you by your employer before every payday, in any amount you say. That way, you never plan on the money and never miss it. Payday after payday, these sums grow into savings bonds, and before long, you'll find you have a collection of them. And remember, every Series E bond you buy pays back $4 at maturity for every 3. That's right. You get back $4 for every 3 invested. Help today's higher earning power pay off for you tomorrow. Begin saving regularly with United States savings bonds. Join the payroll savings plan. And now, William Conrad.
You know, on the frontier, a woman had to scratch pretty hard to make any kind of a home for a man. And next week, a woman who had worked at this for over 20 years finally lets the frontier beat her, and a man dies. But that was the West.
Gunsmoke. Produced and directed by Norman MacDonald, stars William Conrad as Matt Dillon, U.S. Marshal. The script was specially written for Gunsmoke by Gil Dowd, with editorial supervision by John Meston. The music was composed and conducted by Rex Corey. Sound patterns by Ray Kemper and Bill James. Featured in the cast were Harry Bartell, Vic Perrin, Lawrence Dobkin, and Jess Kirkpatrick. Harley Bear is Chester, Howard McNear is Doc, and Georgia Ellis is Kitty. Join us again next week for another specially transcribed story on Gunsmoke.
that concludes our visit to Sunday, October 14th, 1956, Gunsmoke. We're not done, though. We've got more to come here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. And it is an episode of Lum and Abner. That comes up, but first, as usual, a message or 12.
Everyone who works for a living knows that illness or injury may keep them from earning a living. Today, more than 9 out of 10 American workers are covered by Social Security, and each one should know that if he becomes severely disabled, he and his family may be eligible for monthly Social Security disability payments. More than 1 million people are now receiving benefits each month under this program. For more information about Social Security disability benefits, write to Social Security, Department 15, Hollywood 28, California, and ask for a free copy of Booklet 29 called If You Become Disabled.
I think that's something that Lum Edwards would be interested in, because right now he's got a broken leg. Well, he doesn't, but he says he does. This episode of Lum and Abner and the continuing story of Lum and getting interested in the new school teacher is feigning a broken leg. This episode from 82 years ago, October 14th, 1941.
The makers of Alka-Seltzer bring you Lum and Abner. You know, friends, they say that advice is the easiest thing in the world to give, but the hardest to follow. Well, here's a bit of friendly advice that's both easy to give and easy to follow. It's simply get acquainted with the modern, easy Alka-Seltzer way to relief for acid indigestion. For Alka-Seltzer does offer modern relief for minor stomach upsets. You see, it not only reduces excess gastric acidity, but it also helps to relieve that full, stuffy feeling. It's easy, too, because all you have to do is drop an Alka-Seltzer tablet or two into a glass of water, like this, listen to it fizz, then drink the refreshing solution this makes. Now, that's all there is to it. No mixing, no stirring, no bother. You're in for a real treat the first time you take Alka-Seltzer for acid indigestion, sour, upset stomach, occasional distress after meals, or heartburn. So try it next time you eat not wisely but too well. Get Alka-Seltzer at any drugstore, either by the package or by the glass at the soda fountain. And now, let's see what's going on down in Pine Ridge. In order to avoid taking Sister Simpson to the school social last Friday, Lum pretended to have a broken leg. Abner spread the news of the fake accident to such an extent that Lum has been forced to keep his leg in splints. Yesterday, Squire Skimp climaxed the situation by insisting that Lum put in a claim for disability on his accident insurance policy. Today, as we look in on the little community, we find Lum down at the Jot 'em Down store. Abner is just entering. Listen.
Hey, come in, Abner.
Well, I'll be dogged. What are you doing down here so early?
I couldn't sleep, so I just come on down and opened up the store. Might as well spent the night down here as far as sleeping went.
Didn't you sleep good?
Never closed an eye all night long.
Well, no wonder, Lum. You got to help some, you know. You got to close your eyes.
Well, I mean, I never slept none.
What's the matter? Was your leg bothering you?
My leg?
Oh, of course. I forgot it ain't sure enough broke. Since you've been wearing them bandages and using them crutches, I forget myself sometimes.
Well, you better forget all the time. You're going to let it slip around here one of these days that it ain't broke, and then I am into it sure enough.
I ain't told a soul.
That's one reason I couldn't sleep. I got to thinking about that accident policy. If I take that $100 from that insurance company, I'm liable to go to the penitentiary. Do you know that?
Penitentiary?
Yes, sir. Obtaining money under false pretenses. Defrauding the insurance companies, what it is.
Why?
Well, because I'm letting them pay me for a broke leg when my leg ain't sure enough broke.
Well, that ain't your fault. Squire's the one that sent in the claim.
Yeah, but I'll be the one that gets the money.
I was right here when he made out the claim, and you tried to get him not to send it in.
Yeah, I know. I wished I hadn't signed the thing.
Yeah, that's where you done wrong.
But he said if I didn't sign it, he was going to have a doctor come over here and examine me, and I knowed I couldn't stand for that to happen.
Oh, no, they'd have found out then, sure enough.
I don't know what to do. Granny, it looks like if it ain't 6 of one thing, it's a whole dozen and a half of something else.
Well, I wouldn't take that money now if you're liable to get sent to the penitentiary over just $100. If I was going to run that risk, I'd ask them for about 1,000.
Well, I don't want none of their money. I ain't got nothing coming to me. But if I don't take it, I got to admit that my leg ain't broke.
Well, I don't know. I believe I'd rather go to the penitentiary for a little while long rather than to tell all these folks around here that it ain't broke after them being so nice to you.
Yeah, that's what makes it so hard to tell them the truth. Everybody's sympathizing with me. Coming down to the store this morning, Grandma Masters is out sweeping off her front steps and started sympathizing with me over my leg being broke, and her eyes all puddled up, and tears running down her face.
Bless her heart.
I never felt so guilty in my life, Abner. I wanted to tell her the truth, but I just couldn't.
No.
Special now that I put in that claim for that insurance.
Well, that ain't nothing, old Well, I weren't supposed to tell you, but the Ladies' Aid Society is having a food sale next Saturday to raise money towards buying you a wheelchair.
Wheelchair?
That's what Elizabeth was telling me last night.
Well, I don't need no wheelchair.
Well, they think you do, though, Lum. This story about your broke leg's been told so many times now. They got it exaggerated to where you wouldn't know it yourself.
Yeah, I know they have. Luke Spears said he heard I had both legs broke.
Well, Mose Moot stopped me on the way to work just now and said he heard the doctor said you'd never walk again.
What doctor?
He never said.
I ain't been examined by no doctor.
No, I just telling you how that story's growing on.
Yeah, all because I told one little thing that weren't the truth. Had you tell Sister Simpson my leg was broke just to keep from taking her to the party, I oughtn't have did it. Ought not to have did it.
Even the school children is helping, Lum.
School children?
Yeah, they got a coffee can on the teacher's desk down there with a hole cut in the top of it, and a sign there says, "Help poor Lum buy a wheelchair." They're all bringing their pennies to school for you.
Aye, Grannies, that settles it. I'm going to tell the truth. I don't care what happens. Come on, take them bandages off of there, Abner. I can't stand this no longer.
Well, what about the penitentiary? You done signed that insurance claim.
Oh, my goodness. This is awful. I can stop that wheelchair business, though. Quick as they take up books over there this morning, I want you to go over there and tell the teacher that the doctor just got done examining me again, and I'll be up walking in a day or two.
Yeah, I can do that.
And then tell Elizabeth the same thing, not to have no food sale.
Yeah,
to have it.
I'll tell her I believe we can head it off all right, Lum. Yeah.
You got to help me out of this, Abner. It's just getting worse all the time.
I'll help you.
Everybody's so nice to me. If they was to find out that this is a fake, if I was to get hurt now, nobody wouldn't pay no attention to me. I'd be like the feller that hollered wolf once too often.
Yeah? Huh?
Huh? Oh, I say I'd be like the feller that hollered wolf too often.
Who was that?
Oh, I don't know who it was, but he kept hollering wolf, and everybody rushed out to help him keep it from eating up his sheep, and there weren't no wolf there. So finally...
What was it?
I don't know. Anyway...
Might have been a shepherd dog or a police dog. They look a lot like wolves.
No, it weren't no dog.
Could it have been a fox? Is that the right answer?
There weren't nothing there, Abner. He just kept...
Too late, huh? He done it 'em.
If you'll shut up, I'll tell you the story.
Go ahead.
I was just using that for an example. Here I've been hollering broke leg, and he was hollering wolf. It's the same thing.
Oh, that's his way of hollering help, huh?
No. He was just joking. Thought it was funny having all them people running out there looking for a wolf when there wasn't none there.
Well, that broke leg must not have been hurting him none long if he could lay there and josh with him that way.
He never had no broke leg. Where'd you get that idea in your head?
You said he did.
I said I did.
Well, your leg ain't broke.
I know that. That's what I say. If I keep saying my leg is broke, when I do break it, nobody won't believe me.
Well, you could show it to him. How you aiming on breaking it?
I ain't gonna break it. I say if it was broke.
Oh. Well, now, what about the wolf? Now, where does that come in?
Oh, well, he kept hollering wolf when there weren't no wolf there, and then one day, sure enough, a wolf did come after his sheep, and he hollered wolf, and nobody wouldn't pay no attention to him.
Well, just kept calling him till one finally showed up, huh? That puts me in mind of that story about Little Red Riding Hood. She was walking through the woods one day to see her grandma, and she met a wolf.
I know the story, Abner, and I don't want to hear it again.
Well, it couldn't be no worse than that in yours.
What?
That was the uninterestingest story I ever heard in my life. There was a wolf there in my store. Her grandma was a wolf. She went over to her grandma's
Wait a minute,
house.
here's Squire Skimp. Now, don't be telling no Little Red Riding Hood story while he's in here. He'll think we're both crazy.
Well, it's a nice story, Lum.
I know it's nice.
Don't you know, she said, "Oh, Grandma, what big ears you got." She said, "All the better to see you with, my dear."
Come in, Squire. Better to hear you with.
Well, good morning, good morning. How's the invalid this morning, Lum?
Oh, I ain't much account, Squire.
Well, I just wanted to tell you that I got your claim off all right, Lum. You'll be getting your check here in a few days
Oh,
now.
my goodness. Squire, I've been thinking about that. I don't feel right about taking that money. Couldn't we write them and tell them not to send me no check?
Oh, no, they'll be glad to pay it, Lum. They're not going to complain about it. That's what they're in business for. That's what you paid your premiums for. And I don't mind telling you that I've sold 3 policies already on the strength of this settlement.
Well, I'm glad to see somebody's benefiting by it.
Yes, business is good, Lum. Business is good. What did Doc Miller say about your leg today, Lum?
Doc Miller?
Yes.
He never had nothing to do with it.
Why, I naturally suppose that he set your leg. In fact, I put it in the report that he was the attending physician. Who took care of it?
Oh, why, huh?
I say, who set your leg for you, Lum?
He said it himself.
Yeah, I said it myself. I'd forgot.
You mean that you set your own leg? Why, that's the greatest thing I ever heard of, Lum.
Oh, it weren't so much. The bones was already there.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. I'm going to send that in to the National Medical Journal, too.
Oh, no, now,
Yes,
sir.
they'll give you a write-up on that.
I don't
Why
want
didn't
no
you tell me
write-up.
before? Oh, now, Lum, you're too modest. That's your trouble. You're entirely too modest, Lum, for your own good.
Well, now, wait a minute, Squire. I don't want no story wrote about
Well,
it. I
now,
don't think
tut now, Lum. This is good publicity for you. And I'll do that this very morning, too. I'll write that up.
Wait a minute, Squire.
Mail. I'll see you later,
Oh,
man.
hold on a minute.
Too late, Lum. He's done went.
Now, what have I got into? This thing just keeps getting worse, Abner.
Yeah.
I can't stand it no longer. How long is it supposed to take a broke leg to mend?
I don't know. At least a week, I reckon.
Yeah. Call Doc Miller and find out for sure, Abner. Don't tell him who wants to know, though.
No.
I don't want him over here looking at it.
Let's see. Here's a ring. It's a short and a long and a short, ain't it?
Yeah. If it don't take more than a week, I'll have these splints off of here by the time that insurance money gets here, and I can turn it down. Just refuse it. Grannies, I knowed I'd find some way out of it.
Hello, Doc? This is Abner Peabody. Yeah. Oh, tolerably well, I reckon. How'd you sell? Well. Oh, she's feeling fine.
Abner, quit telling him about your own ailments and asking him about my leg.
Oh, Doc,
Sit there and visit all afternoon.
how long does it take a broke leg to heal?
Morning.
Well, average kind. Uh-huh.
What?
Oh, me and Mom was just arguing about it. Wondered if I ever did get one, how long it'd take to get over it.
I think it was his leg is broke.
Uh-huh. Yeah, all right. Thank you, Doc. But we will. You come. Goodbye.
How long did he say?
Well, he said if it weren't a very bad break,
Yeah.
it oughtn't to take over 2 months.
2 months? You mean I got to go around with these crutches for 2 whole months?
Or maybe 3, he said.
Well, Lum is certainly having his troubles these days, even as you and I. Well, if one of your troubles is making both ends of the family budget meet, here's a ray of hope for you. vitamin prices are down. That's right, the makers of Alka-Seltzer offer and guarantee one-a-day brand vitamin A and D tablets. And the prices are so low that folks like you and me can afford this much-needed protection for every member of the family. Think of it. One-a-day tablet is all you need each day, and it costs only 1 penny a day. Yet it assures you of your full, normal daily requirements of both vitamins A and D. Vitamin A is a necessary aid in building normal resistance to infections more likely to occur in membranes of the eyes, ears, nose, throat, and sinuses when you're deficient in this vitamin. Vitamin D helps prevent rickets and related bone deformities and is an essential for normal tooth formation in children. So ask your druggist for one-a-day brand vitamin A and D tablets. Look for the big one on the package. And say, while you're in the drugstore, you better take home a package of Alka-Seltzer tablets, too.
October 14th, 1941, Lum and Abner here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Can I make a comment about vitamins? Our food is nowhere near as nutritious as it used to be. The vitamin content has declined, and many times cooking methods send the vitamin nutritional benefits lower. That's why I suggest you use a vitamin every day. I take vitamins every day, and I believe it or not, just by using vitamin supplements, I've brought down some of my blood sugars, and I've brought down my cholesterol. So it never hurts to use vitamin supplementation. It'll be good for you. Give it a try. And I'm not going to recommend on the doing this podcast any specific ones, but they do make a lot of sense. All righty, let me thank you so much for making us a part of your Saturday here on Classic Radio Theater. We'll be back for our Sunday edition. Visit our webpage, classicradio.stream, classicradio.stream. Have yourself a great day, and we will see you tomorrow with more of the greatest radio shows of all time.